I mean, that is at the crux of our problems in regards to the violence. We have had great headway in regards to our property crimes. We have task force. I mean, just take for instance the auto theft issue. As we all know, that we've had unfortunate notoriety in regards to auto theft issue, and collaboratively working with our community partners, working with the city, the mayor's office, and having dedicated men and women addressing these issues assist us in a change in regards to having a true impact of identifying those individuals who are contributing to the overall problem. I mean, we all know that for those property crimes, you can identify one or two individuals that contribute to a large share and really make some impact. But let's go back to when we want to talk about what's our firearm issue. Our firearm issue is dealing with situations of interpersonal issues. That's almost like a minority report. How do you place an officer in a home that, you know, today, you know, a grandfather was not happy that money came up missing, and, you know, the individual's own grandson was killed? How do you engage in a situation where, you know, you have brother and brother where they have a disagreement over, you know, property, and it goes, you know, to a deadly result? Those are challenges that we are being transparent about what those challenges are, but then there's a call to action where there is a responsibility now that as we are revealing those challenges, we're saying that this is bigger than us collectively. It's the mayor's office, the police department, Office of Violence Prevention. We're not talking in a plural or we or us just to be cute. This is about engaging what you can find within you, whether you're saying individuals who are you know, purchasing firearms with not bringing a level of responsibility behind it, lock it up. Don't have it accessible to your children or to someone who, out of anger, will be able to access it and use it to resolve, you know, a particular issue. You're gonna, you know, I never ever push back about the right to carry, but if you will carry, be responsible in your vehicles. We're seeing a trend that vehicles are being broken into and your firearm is being taken and unfortunately is being used in the furtherance of other crimes. So when we talk about these things, whether it's your business community, put out the communication about responsibility. That the only thing you shouldn't be worried about is you know, your vehicle being taken, but items of that particular type of deadly use taken out of your vehicle. Or, you know, faith-based, you know, how are we helping with the conflict or the trauma within our communities? There's something for everyone in regards to this particular unfortunate trend. But I believe that we can do it. You know, 2023, we start off with all types of resolutions. Well, that's my resolution. You know, that we are going to continue to use the impact of collective, you know, working together to make that true impact that we all want to see within our community. Yes, please. Take over.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, Elliot. In terms of Milwaukee being in the inverse of what we have seen in terms of national trends, homicides, you know, decreasing in some of the places, but other crimes going up, and Milwaukee being the other way, with homicides up a little bit, and you know, other Part 1 crimes going down. I think, you know, since I've been in this office as mayor, and the chief has talked about this, and Director Hamilton has talked about this, since I've been in this office and have been working directly with Chief Norman, and certainly since Ashanti has taken over in the Office of Violence Prevention as well, we have put that that challenge out there to the community to say, hey, we need your help. It's not just up to me as mayor. It's not just up to Jeff Norman as the police chief. It's not just up to Ashanti Hamilton as the director of Office of Violence Prevention, right? Before somebody goes out there in our community and does something bad, they're leaving somebody's house. And if they do something bad, guess what? They're gonna go sit on somebody's couch. So we need people to step up and to be a part of this solution as well. I've said it constantly. And at the end of my statement just this morning, my opening remarks just this morning, I talked just about that. There is no room on the sidelines. We need everybody to be in the game. That's parents, that's teachers, that's preachers, that's mentors, that's friends, that's everybody stepping up and being a part of the solution here. So I have said, and we'll repeat here as well here too, that if you see something awry happening in your neighborhood, you got to speak up. You got to talk about it, right? You can call the police department and you can do that anonymously, right? We've got Crime Stoppers that are out there, and that's been a great program, and you can call them and report things anonymously. When I served as alderman, what I would suggest to my constituents then, the same thing I suggest right now, is you can call your elected officials and report things anonymously too, and we will get that information to authorities on your behalf so that you have arm's length from the situation. You can reach out and call the Office of Violence Prevention and report things anonymously too. There are no excuses as to why people cannot speak up to protect their own neighborhoods. The tools are right there at your disposal, right? And you've got partners on this side of the podium who want to help you, who want to be a part of the solution, whether it's in violence prevention, if you see things that could potentially shake out to end in violence, or in law enforcement, right? There are tools here, and we want to use those tools, but it's a two-way street. So the folks on the other side of the camera who are receiving the message from us today, we need you to be engaged. We need you to be a part of the solution as well. So I think that partly helps to explain what I believe in terms of Milwaukee's positioning being the inverse of what the national trends are, because we have actively, over the past year plus, been out there talking about these incidences and saying that we need the community to step up and be a part of the solution here too.
And I just wanted to touch on that just because I think it's really important to catch one nuance. I want to underline both what the mayor said and what the chief said, but there is a nuance to that study because we're being guided by some of the data from that same study. And if you take a look at some of the cities where you see the inverse, those cities have a infrastructure where they are directly prepared to deal with this type of violence, and the access to firearms. The chief touched on this. There are some things that are particularly unique about Milwaukee, about that access. But most major cities that are politically in places that allow for easy access to firearms are seeing the same type of trends that you see here in Milwaukee. And so so being able to have an infrastructure where you can have a collective impact and you have community-based organizations and you have kind of a shared vision about how you're going to attack this problem, they're doing better at addressing it. And that's the direction that we want to go in, and this is the direction that both the chief and the mayor have just outlined for us. And so that's the direction that I think we would see the best outcomes, because those are the best practices. And you can take a look at Baltimore and Newark and a couple of other cities that are in that space. Those who are not prepared and are not doing the types of things that the mayor and the chief have just talked about are not seeing as much success. And we're not the worst.
Yeah, Evan from WPR. Regarding homicides, is there any thoughts of possibly updating the blueprint for peace? I know that was put in place 6 years ago this time. And some community people I spoke to said that was an interest of theirs, of seeing that plan updated and brought with the new light. Is that a possibility going into this new year?
Yep, I think that it's real important for us to continue around the road that the blueprint laid out. What you are going to see going forward is operationalizing the blueprint. The whole idea is for this to kind of go into about to guide a lot of our activity until 2026 or so. We're going through a process now that would allow us to start collecting data, information from community members that can help guide the direction going forward. And what you will see now is more people taking ownership of the actual goals in the blueprint, and how do we actually turn that plan into action.
Steve? Chief, I want to come back to something you said a minute ago. You made the minority report reference. So much of what seemed to drive the spike last year was interpersonal. A beef between people with anger
So any particular violent crime strategy has to be comprehensive. It has to be part of a greater conversation than just the police department. I believe the Milwaukee Police Department has been a great job of being part of these conversations with those who have more of a direct response or the ability to carry that particular responsibility further with credibility. Credible Messengers is one of those situations. You talk about the Office of Violence Prevention, we talk about interrupters. We're part of the violent response in public health and safety teams, where we are collaborating with multiple different community groups, government groups. We have a public safety review each week where we have a comprehensive discussion with all different partners, whether it's Department of Corrections, whether it's the DA's office. So we understand there is only so much that we can do. There is rules of engagement, so to speak. There is responsibility that we have to be called to the scene. We have to be aware that there is a crime going on. Unfortunately, some of these situations go from 0 to 100 real quick. You have a parking trouble, and there is issues of who's supposed to be the one parking there. Someone goes and retrieves their gun. That is a challenging dynamic for us to be right there. And not say, and when we talk about the concept of policing, that's a collaborative effort. That's more than just us to police. Remember how that police departments came to be from the community. So when we talk about these things, to expect an officer, one, I don't know if that's even appropriate, but two, we need to be part of those conversations and willing to share those conversations with those who have just as much responsibility, which is our community, but also how do we engage our partners to be part of a collaborative effort, a partnership, so to speak, to have a better response than just saying that, no one wants to arrest your way out of it. You cannot arrest your way out of it. We have challenges in regards to our, secure facilities. And so we need to be more innovative. We need to be more proactive rather than reactive. And that, yes, the police department has a role in this to ensure those who are facilitators. We have people out there straw purchasing firearms. We have individuals who are not being responsible with their firearms, not securing them right. There is a role that we have that comes with accountability, but the challenge is real. We have almost half our homicides, two identified contributing incidents, whether it's, again, the argument, conflict issues, or domestic violence. There's a lot of opportunities, but definitely there is a wide variety of challenges behind that.
I'd like to, Director Hamilton, how do you get in front of somebody with anger or a beef and a gun? That's, as you heard the chief say, that was half of it last year.
Right. You'd be surprised at how often some of our teams have done exactly that. And in part, a lot of that is building relationships. We have to be in the spaces where the problems are happening, which is one of the plans right off the bat when we talk about what practices have worked in other cities. There's been relationship building and trust building in many of those communities, not just with building trust with the police department, but building trust with other institutions that actually can do something and help train folks on how to handle conflict resolution, and be able to have an infrastructure where the people who could use that training and could use that information are actually connected to those resources, and then they trust that they can share intimate things about what's happening in their family without it being punitive, without the fear of losing their children, without the fear being able to talk about a domestic violence incident in their family, without the threat of their partner, being prosecuted for it, and actually going through a process of resolving that. It takes the ability to build the trust to get people in that situation to trust using the resources, which is why having the right partners at the table in order to intervene and having success with that builds more trust with other people in the community that we're trying to have an impact in, to continue using those services. And it is our hope that as we do that more, that we have less situations that go from 0 to 100, because we have a more informed, a more trusting community that's using the resources that's around them in order to solve conflicts. And it's been working on a small scale, maybe not numbers that that we would want to see, but the strategy works, the trust building works, and the institutions that we have that are coming to the table to to help inform the community and assist the community. We're building the capacity of those organizations so that so that everybody would have an opportunity who wanted to use them, that we would be able to serve them.
And I'd just like to reiterate a point as well that, Steve, you mentioned, the example of, what happens or how does the police or even OVP be in a position to make a difference when somebody's got a beef and they got a gun in their close proximity and they don't get a call until after the deed's been done and somebody's been shot. If somebody is going to use a gun to shoot somebody just because they got into an argument, or shoot somebody over a parking spot because you happen to be neighbors, let's just say, and there was some issues before you. If you're using a gun for that purpose, the question bears in mind is, should that person have a gun in the first place? That's not something that anybody who's standing on this side of the podium right now has bearings on. We don't control those laws. That's why I said this morning and have said in the past that when we talk about partners, it's not just partners in the community or partners in law enforcement or elected officials at the local level, at least. We need other partners at other levels of government to actually see what they can do, what sort of strategies they can implement as well to stop individuals who should not have guns in the first place from getting access to them, right? So we can work to message to the business community and their patrons to make sure that you either don't bring guns, or if you do bring guns and they're in your car, make sure that they are secured so folks don't have access to them, can't use them. But at the same time too, though, we got to work to make sure that individuals who should not have their hands on a gun in the first place never have the opportunity to do so. Because when they do, we see bloodshed on the street. So you have to work at that too. Let's not forget that.
Shocker, I don't have a question, just here to listen.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's my belated Christmas gift.
Victor with Pinky in Telemundo. I want to kind of shift over to auto involved incidents. Just kind of seeing some of the numbers you laid out here. Specifically, we were here a few months ago talking about your initiatives of fake cars, traffic safety unit, use of safe patrol. Looking at, you had slight bump in fatalities, but a decrease in significant chunks with crashes and hit and runs. I want to know, do you expect to kind of continue those initiatives that you laid out a few months ago because you're seeing success, or do you see there were other things that led to that? What's been kind of, that focus with reckless driving?
So first of all, I'm very appreciative just of the collaborative effort in regards to addressing this, not only from the Mayor's office and Office of Violence Prevention, but a lot of our community members. We have a really engaged, robust conversation going on in regards to these challenges they're seeing within the community. I know that we are part of, what is it, Vision Zero, I'm sorry. Oh, there's so much in the head, but Vision Zero, I know that the Mayor's office have made a commitment of having a person designated to work on that particular strategy, but it's a collective effort for what we're dealing with reckless driving. Reckless driving contributes to other violence. It contributes to, unfortunately, our fatalities. So long story short, in regards to answer that, yes, continue to use all these particular strategies, the tone of vehicles for those who are using their vehicles unregistered in, reckless driving or other issues in regards to that. Understand that the traffic safety unit still has a role. Having that public-facing forward engagement tool of mpdtsu.org to be real time of conversations with our particular residents, but also to show where we're at, to reveal what the enforcement looks like. So it's important that we still keep our ears open for other suggestions that we might not be aware of. I know that there is still a lot of opportunities. We're going to, as a team here, or as a partners here, enter into a town hall pretty soon in regards to talking about further about what we can do about reckless driving and the issues that surrounds that. So we are happy with the success, but we also understand we don't rest on our laurels and think that this is it. We have a continuous conversation, continuous effort being put forth to ensure that we are continuing the downward momentum of what we see in reckless driving, but all issues within our city, whether it's the violence, whether it's, again, like I said, motor vehicle thefts. I mean, we have to keep our eyes on the ball and all that.
Yeah, my questions are actually for Ashanti. You've been talking about building trust within the communities to heal, but what exactly does that look like? You talked about violence interrupters. How often are they in the communities? Just paint us a picture. What exactly does that look like, and how exactly are you measuring the success of your efforts?
Well, great question. So a number of things are happening, right? So just because of capacity, there are a number of neighborhoods that that we have violence interrupters operating in. When we're measuring success about contacts there, mediations that they've been able to intervene in, and a lot of times understanding that is like they're not operating in isolation either. There is a whole community network of community members that are sharing that, including social media information that informs their work. And because of many of the relationships that they've already been able to build, there's been very successful retaliation avoidance through that process. And we're able to measure those. We can count them, and I can share the reports with you about that activity. A strategy that we've also done is understanding that the area that we want to have an impact in is larger than just the concentrated areas that they're operating in. And so there is a spectrum of credible messenger skill sets that we are continuing to invest in so that we can cover larger areas with people who have already built some of those trust relationships in these community areas, to not only just deal with violence interruption, but act as intermediaries with institutions and resources. So you want to get people to use the services. So a lot of what we're doing is coming from an asset-based approach that the city of Milwaukee has a number of community-based organizations that are operating and doing great work in many of the communities that we're operating in, but they need to be connected to those resources. And we've had some success. We had a Safe Summer initiative where we identified a number of credible messengers from a number of organizations, and they were very successful in being able to engage all of the demographics that we're attempting to have an impact on. And we have some studies to share with you about what that engagement looked like and the activity that they were involved in. So it is our plan to have that activity extend year-round and have a better organized resource center with all of our community partners that you've mentioned, so that there's better connection for the folks that we're serving. And so we'll be able to produce the reports about that activity and hopefully overlap that activity with whatever the impact is, with whether you're talking crime statistics or housing shortages or whatever the indicator is. And so so the whole point of that is there is an intermediary operating in our most challenged areas to build those relationships.
One more question. We've heard since last year that building relationships, building trust within these communities is key to, help out with violence. But how is your approach different from, like, say, last year's?
It is more comprehensive. It is activating, like we were operating in just a few spaces. You heard about the blueprint previously, right? We were really operating in just one or two of those goal sets. We want to operationalize the whole thing. And so that people can identify and take ownership of different goals. And there's a platform so that they're not doing it by themselves. You're doing it collectively with all of the folks that are actually operating in that community. And you should have witnessed that in the past couple weeks of a number of city departments coming to the table who have not been at the table in these efforts. And you're going to see more of that, that type of support on different levels with different community-based organizations and youth-serving agencies in order to have that collective impact that the chief keeps mentioning. And so how is it different? It's not different. It's an expansion and an activation of. So it's not as if there's a change in direction. There's a deepening and a collaboration building that's happening toward the direction that we should be moving in.
Question for the mayor here. So it's been a year since the city rolled out its public safety program. Can you talk about any changes or results that have happened over the last course of the year?
I think some of the things that we led with today are an example of what's happened over the course of the last year, right? When I talked about coming into this office, one of the chief things that we discussed was having a city that's safer. Now, homicides are something that obviously we have to continue to work on, like other cities across the country also have to work on, but the numbers that Chief Norman discussed here are telling. Right, crime overall, Part 1 crime in Milwaukee overall are down some 15%, from last year. That's a positive momentum. I declared reckless driving, which is a public safety issue. I declared a public safety crisis and corralled the entire government to come together to work on strategies to mitigate that quality of life issues that affects people in every single corner of Milwaukee. And so the police department and the traffic safety unit certainly has been an active partner in that, but it's not just been the police. We've worked with the Wisconsin State Patrol. I want to thank the superintendent there and the governor for allowing those resources to come into the city of Milwaukee, because usually you don't see that activity from the State Patrol patrolling in the city of Milwaukee unless there's a dignitary like the President of the United States or the governor who's in the city. So we've had that happening. Our Department of City Development, working in conjunction with the Department of Public Works, has developed resources and has implemented mitigating strategies, including pinned-on curb extensions and the like, to stop people from passing on the right that has become so common on the streets here. DPW has continued its program for these rapid implementation projects with paint and with posts, and our Vision Zero efforts are underway. We're working to make sure that there are actual protected bike lanes in Milwaukee, and how does that contribute to public safety? Well, one, it makes the transportation system safer for those alternative users, but also it becomes another mitigating factor to reckless driving, because you have another physical barrier that's there. So when you look at crime overall, rape and robbery and burglary and motor vehicle theft, those things are down in Milwaukee. And when you look at our investments that we've made at my direction in issues of reckless driving and that big public quality of life issue, we're seeing improvements there too. And those are things we want to double down on and continue to work on. And it's not just those physical things or enforcement things. As I said earlier, it's very important to me to make sure we have earlier interventions in the lives of young people. Before I came here this morning, I had the opportunity to speak to about 100 young people who are from Milwaukee, who have an excellent opportunity through this program called All In Milwaukee, spearheaded by Northwestern Mutual, that's given them the opportunity to go to college, a number of colleges in our region and elsewhere in the state. Those young people are going to be in a position to go get an education, to bring the education back here, to be a part of an educated workforce that supplies our employers, to get family support and jobs, to stabilize neighborhoods. That's long-term thinking, long-term strategy that helps public safety.